10 years from today, Lisa Schneider will trade in her office job to become the leader of a pack of dogs. As the owner of her own dog rescue, that is. A second act made possible by the reskilling courses Lisa's taking now with AARP to help make sure her income lives as long as she does. And she can finally run with the big dogs. And the small dogs, who just think they're big dogs. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP. Learn more at aarp.org/skills.
For adults with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms, every choice matters. Tremfya offers self-injection or intravenous infusion from the start. Tremfya is administered as injections under the skin or infusions through a vein every 4 weeks, followed by injections under the skin every 4 or 8 weeks. If your doctor decides that you can self-inject Tremfya, proper training is required. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active Crohn's disease and adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Explore what's possible. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
The Who's Down in Who Newville were making their list, but some didn't know Walmart has the best brands for their gifts.
What about toys? Do they have brands kids have been wanting all year?
Yep, Barbie, Tony's, and Lego. Gifts that will make them all cheer.
Do you mean they have all the brands I adore?
They have Nintendo, Nespresso, Apple, and more.
What about...
So the Who answered questions from friends till they were blue. Each one listened and shouted, from Walmart? Who knew? Shop gifts from top brands for everyone on your list in the Walmart app.
Let's get some mace-plaining in. So, recently I released this video, Free Agency is Broken, where I kind of went through a bunch of reasons that free agency is the way it is and why players make the decisions that they make. And then I made a case for maybe some slight adjustments to how player contracts are structured at the beginning so that free agency starts to correct itself a little bit more with maybe some tweaks to some rules without having to say, you can't spend that much money and you have to spend that much money, because I don't think that moves the needle quite a bit and won't solve the big problems that all the small market fans want. So just quick in a nutshell, you should definitely watch this video in full if you haven't yet. I know a lot of you have, but it will make a lot more sense. But the main premise is free agency, guys going into free agency look for these top dollar amounts because it takes so long to get there, and the vast majority of players that get to free agency only get there one time. So they only get one opportunity to make a maximum value case, and a lot of times free agency misses the prime window of a player's career because they are under control for so long. So what I proposed was, instead of capping how much money you can spend, maybe we shorten how long these deals are and how much control you have at the front end of a player, so that a player can then think about free agency as a couple opportunities, and also the deals can only be so long. So basically, you don't have to get this bidding so high with Juan Soto, because he's not going to be on the market ever again. You see what I mean? That's why the bidding goes up so high. This is your one opportunity. If there's more than one opportunity, the incentives to just constantly throw money at, make it higher and higher and higher, those incentives kind of get a little bit smaller, and players can prioritize other things knowing that they can only go a maximum number of years and therefore get a maximum amount of money. So like guys would be more likely to be like, I want to go to this city, right? I want to play in that place and I'm willing to take a little bit less money because I might have another opportunity to do it again later anyways. So great. Also, teams should like it too, so they won't be locked into a 13-year deal where at least 5 of those years are going to be worthless. Like, it kind of kills two birds with that one stone, in my opinion. So that's what I proposed. And then I asked you guys to ask follow-up questions on the video. And that's what I have here. I have compiled 15, kind of aggregated them together, and we're going to go through some of these clarifying questions one by one, because I think some of them were so good and brought up such good points in relation to this video that I just think that it's worth talking about in this this context. So we're just going to jump right into them with clarification number one. Now, I will give you basically some of these were just aggregated into summarized. I used some software to get the gist and then phrase the question in the most simple way because it was asked a bunch of different ways in the comments. So that's what's happening. If it doesn't look exactly like what you asked in the comments, that's why. Okay. So moving forward. Oops. That's not right. I'm pushing the wrong buttons. There we go. All right. Question number one. So someone basically said, this is from Bratislav. He said, I feel like fewer control years would just result in mega teams getting more players in their absolute prime for fewer years and small market teams catching guys in their final years. Okay. How would you propose changes to prevent the Dodgers Yankees from still dominating free agency? Wouldn't shorter contracts just let them cycle through stars faster? So this is a great question. And there is some truth to that might happen, but it won't just happen because they have the ability to pay a $700 million contract, right? So let me give you an example here. Say a guy went to free agency after 4 years instead of 6. He is 27 now instead of 29. He can only sign up to a 5-year deal. If that's the case, then the priorities of what he can get, he's like, I can only sign 5 years, so the maximum I'm probably going to get, say this guy is a really good shortstop, second baseman, but he's not say he's like a Dansby Swanson type, $30 million a year guy. So he's like, okay, 5 for 150 is kind of the max. If that's the AAV, because we're going by AAVs, not max contract, we're going by AAVs per year. If it's 5 for 150, the number of teams that can pay for 5 for 150 is way higher than teams that can pay 11 for 325. So already off the top, the number of teams that can afford to project $150 million on their payroll is way higher. So there's more teams theoretically involved, can be. So now the player can say, cool, which one of these cities do I want to get to? Because I'm going to tell you a secret right now. Not everyone wants to go play in the Bronx or play in LA. A lot of people don't want to live in the big city like that. Some people want to live closer to their town. I know for a fact Jake DeGrom was very open to playing in Atlanta or playing in Tampa because that's closer to where he grew up. Those places were not options because they simply would not get near his value because of what he commands. But if that were a smaller deal, shorter, more teams would deal with it. So that's what I think. I think players are open to going other places. They don't just go there because it's the best place to go. They go there because it's going to offer them the most money vast majority of the time. But if you remove they're going to offer me the most money or meaningfully more money. If the Yankees we'll give you 32 a year, you're making 160 instead of 150. Guys might take 150 to go to a city they want to go to, as opposed to not, like Trey Turner did. He took a little bit less money to go to Philly because that's where his wife's from. Guys want to do that. They want to live where they want to live. That would be nice to think about. Some people go to the city because that's the best deal they had by far, and that's the trade-off you have to make. I think that would be alleviated, so I don't think that's quite true. I think that people will be more open to giving other teams a chance if they can actually participate in the conversation. But right now we have 2 or 3 teams participating in the big ones, and then we have 2 or 3 teams participating in the small ones, and everyone else is just that's what free agency is now. That's what I think. I think that'll change it. But there needs to be more happening, obviously, to incentivize spending. But I think that in the psyche of a player, they would be more open to taking a deal that wasn't only the financially best deal if this were the way it was. That was my case. So, do I think it would fix this? No. Do I think it would alleviate it a little bit and more guys would make choices away from those 2 teams? Yes. How much? I don't know. But I know that it would be more than it is now. Number 2. Or I asked for comments and suggestions, by the way. Maybe minor league time should count as service time, but at a reduced rate. The minor league season counts as a quarter, half season service time to help MLB get free agency faster. That's very interesting. And the one bottleneck, or the couple bottlenecks I see with this, are potentially manipulation of at what level, right? Is it AA or higher? Because there's no option system, right? So if there's no option system, meaning a limited number of options of guys going up and down from the big leagues because of service time, teams will just keep people in AA and not put them in AAA until they're about to bring them up so they don't get service time. So there would have to be a bunch of rules put in place for that. It'd get complicated really quickly. But that's a really interesting premise. I like that. Maybe there's something there. Maybe that's for a future video. All right. 3. Hey, Trev, this topic may or may not relate to league-wide parity, but I was curious if you could delve into a theory as to why no AL or NL Central team has won a pennant since 2016. Are the markets in these divisions unable to compete with coastal markets? Will this be something that comes up in the salary cap during the coming lockout? It will come up, yes. The reason that these teams can't compete with the coast is one, that's a really nice argument. So, for example, the Guardians, the Twins, the Tigers actually an exception a little bit. They've just been poorly run since then, so that's a little bit of an outlier here, I think. But they've spent some money. A lot of teams just like the Reds are just going to be like, we can't spend, so they just don't even try. Like they're not even in the conversation ever. Like it's a foregone conclusion. They don't even approach the idea, and they just say, no, we can't, and that's it. And then everyone accepts that, right? So there's that part. So one, the market themselves, though, they could spend more money, and they could, like, for example, the Ricketts could just absolutely do what everyone else is doing with the Cubs. They just refuse to. They just don't want to. They don't want to because they own everything around the stadium, and it's a nice little gig for them, and they're good enough, and it's fun, and people keep coming, and they keep selling out, and Eddie Vedder shows up 5 times a year, and it's great. And they get celebrities to sing the Take Me Out the Ball Game and whatever. So, like, the reason it hasn't happened is, one, there's a little bit of unluckiness, right? Like, the Guardians have gotten close, whatever, but, like, had they had an impact player they wouldn't got in free agency, had they had made any attempt to do that at all, they might have been able to make a push. But again, they're not in the conversations for the big guys because I understand. They're like, we can't pay a 12-year deal. We can pay a 3-year deal. We can't pay a 12-year deal. And that just excludes 25 of the teams and all the teams in the Central. And that's why we haven't seen them. But it is going to come up. They're going to use them as an example. Bob Nutting isn't trying at all. You can't make the case, no matter what that dork says or whatever the jargon is or the thing they wrote up on the little the talking points he did when he does an interview one time a year. He's not trying. He's never tried. Everything's been his business has been running itself for 20 years. He was born into it. He has no interest in developing anything, just reaping the rewards. So don't expect that from him. But again, these guys are outliers, right? Not everyone is Bob Nutting. Bob Nutting's by himself. I would say Dick Monfort is 10 times the owner that Bob Nutting is. That guy pisses me off. He's up there with John Fisher right now. He's in my shit list. All right, moving on. Moving forward. Hey, Trev. I understand evaluating players if and when they're ready is subjective, but do you think service time manipulation is also adding to the problem? It used to a lot more than it does now, but yes, it's definitely part of that. But there's been major changes, especially in the 2022 CBA rollover. You can't manipulate as well. There's a number of times you can send someone up while using an option. Basically, how options work, you send them down to the minor leagues. That option is gone unless they're sent back to the big leagues within 10 to... It's gone to 10 to 15 a bunch of times. It's somewhere in that time, then you get it back for the year. Once you burn the option, you only get like 5 charges for a video game term. Like, then it's on cooldown. So like, you can send them up and down 5 times. So those limits have adjusted that a little bit better. But yeah, sure, there's some manipulation time. Usually it was in the case of trying to get to arbitration here early. That's not really happening as much anymore, which is good. It's a good thing. So yes, it's part of it. It's a lot less part of it than it used to be. Okay. Ooh, I like this one about the NIL. So someone asked, NIL makes going to the majors early much less appealing. No uber talented prospect is going to want to ride charter buses and sleep in Best Westerns BFE over potentially playing for an NCAA championship. I don't think that's true, frankly, because college baseball just isn't as lucrative as you think it is. Though it is getting better with the internet. Like, they're not sponsoring college baseball players. Like, there's just not a lot of NIL money in there, not near as much as there is for football and literally everyone else. But there is an ability to do like the content creator thing. This is anecdotes, right? So I don't have the data in front of me. I don't think it's enough money to drive that, but I also think that there might be a shift though, where guys are thinking about college a lot more. But for the most of baseball is just hard. Like look at Kyler Murray. He's like, I'm going to the NFL because I'm going to get to the big leagues way faster. And you just can't guarantee that in baseball. So it is a slog, and it can be, if it's not the perfect situation where you know you're going to blow through, you might as well stay at school and get the NIL money because you'll make a little bit more. I get it. But then again, remember, when you signed, especially if you're a high prospect, you don't have to worry about making money in the minors because you're given like a $3 million bonus. You get $3 million out the gate. Sometimes that's what they want. NIL money is nothing compared to that usually. So, all right, continuing on in the salary cap, and we're going to do this question. We're going to take a break, and we're going to get right back to it in hour two. What would happen if MLB implemented a hard floor where teams must spend 90% of their revenue on payroll, like some suggest for the Mets and Dodgers? Can you show the math on what that would look like in different market seasons? So I could show the math. That'd be a lot of math. But I will say right now, the highest spend of revenue that someone gets is the Dodgers at 73% of their revenue. They're still making money, even though they're spending that much money, right? So 90% is kind of high. You would never get a floor at 90%. I believe the floor offered last CBA when they offered a salary cap, it was like right now the bottom level, the luxury tax is $210 million. They offered a 180 salary cap and a 100 floor, which would affect 3 teams, which is it's just absolute crap. That's a terrible proposal, but they put it out there because they wanted a rebuttal, and the players wouldn't even give them a rebuttal because if you give them a rebuttal, then you make it real, and that is the whole thing. We're going to talk about that a lot over the next year, but I think a floor will help, but I think it comes down to incentives and deterrence because in baseball, a salary cap will inordinately hurt the players. It just will. Like, we do need a rebalancing of how pay is done, but capping it is just going to make those top guys who are getting all the money get less, and then everyone else is going to get the same. Nothing's going to change. That doesn't change anything for them. And then if we have whatever the floor is, which needs to be crazy high, historically, the teams will not change the floor. They'll give you a really low floor and they will not move it. They'll move like the cap up $5 million and they'll put the floor needs to stay the same. That's why this thing never gets any traction, because they refuse to do something that's remotely close to fair. And there's another question in here that explains why they want it so bad, but we'll talk about that in just a moment.
My uncontrollable movements, called TD, tardive dyskinesia, felt embarrassing. I felt like disconnecting. I asked my doctor about treating my TD and learned about Ingrezza, a prescription medicine clinically proven for reducing TD in adults. That's always 1 capsule, once daily, and number 1 prescribed. People taking Ingrezza can stay on most mental health meds.
Ingrezza can cause depression, suicidal thoughts, or actions in patients with Huntington's disease. Call your doctor if you become depressed, have sudden behavior or mood changes, or suicidal thoughts. Don't take Ingrezza if allergic. Serious side effects may include allergic reactions like sudden, potentially fatal swelling and hives, sleepiness, the most common side effect, and heart rhythm problems. Know how Ingrezza affects you before operating a car or dangerous machinery. Report fever, stiff muscles, or problems thinking, as these might be life-threatening. Shaking, stiffness, drooling, and trouble with moving or balance may occur.
Take control by asking your doctor about Ingrezza.
Learn more at Ingrezza.com. That's INGREZZA.com.
10 years from today, Lisa Schneider will trade in her office job to become the leader of a pack of dogs. As the owner of her own dog rescue, that is. A second act made possible by the reskilling courses Lisa's taking now with AARP to help make sure her income lives as long as she does. And she can finally run with the big dogs. And the small dogs, who just think they're big dogs. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP. Learn more at aarp.org/skills.
Hey, we've told you about Huel's new Daily Greens ready-to-drink can, but also we do not want to forget about the OG.
Your favorite. You love that chocolate peanut butter flavor.
I do.
You and Kratz love that chocolate peanut butter flavor.
That's
so
my favorite
good.
one. Mm-hmm.
It's so good.
The breakdown?
The vanilla, also good, but when they sent me the chocolate peanut butter, it's like a dessert, but it's not.
35 grams of protein, no added sugar, gluten-free for your boy, under $5 per meal because it's a meal in a drink. 6 grams of fiber, 27 essential vitamins and minerals. Huel makes healthy eating simple. They also just launched into Target stores nationwide. Try both products today with 15% off your purchase for new customers with the exclusive code FOUL at huel.com/foul. Use that code, fill out the post-checkout survey to help support FT. Get after it, FT fam.
We are going to continue on with the best questions about the free agency video. If you are just joining us, welcome in. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for being here. We are basically covering your best questions that you asked on the free agency video from about a week and a half ago that I put up on YouTube. I asked you for all your questions. You guys gave almost 900 of them, or there was 900 comments on the video, which is crazy. And we're doing some clarification. I prepared. I went and researched some of the stuff you guys asked and have my input on it. So I appreciate that, and we're going to keep going. And I'm excited. So, can you explain why the MLBPA has historically so against salary caps when other leagues' unions have accepted them? What's the MLB players' union strategy, and is it working? Short answer to that question: yes, it is working. It is widely considered around all the leagues that the Major League Baseball Players Association has had the best results out of any of the leagues. And for those of you that believe that the NFL has a good CBA, it is horribly owner-centric. It's crazy how imbalanced it is. And the reason that no players speak out is because there is literally a fine system put in place. If you remember Marshawn Lynch saying, "I'm just here so I won't get fined," that was a form of protest against a fine system that can fine you up to $50,000 for pretty much arbitrary crap. Wearing the wrong cleats is 20 grand. Disparaging the league is a fine. So it's pretty much a built-in NDA that makes it so you can't criticize what the NFL is doing. So I just want to be clear about that. I have a whole video planned for them too. So the reason that the PA, though, MLB, is against the salary cap is for a few reasons. I have been told anecdotally that the biggest need for a salary cap is how easy it is to stack one team with all the best players. And in the NBA and to an extent in the NFL, you can do that a lot more easily than you can in baseball, because baseball neutralizes stars and is based on failure. So even the best players can be in a slump, and then now they're not worth their money, and that happens constantly, right? Like basketball, it's much more rare for a star to just forget how to shoot. Does that make sense? Like they're playing against themselves in the shot. Yeah, they're being defended, but like in baseball, you have to have luck go your way. There's a lot more RNG. So anyway, that's part of it. But another reason is that the other leagues signed their salary caps, and then the Major League Baseball PA saw all of the problems with those systems. So there has been so many grievances and so many court cases around what is considered revenue in both those other leagues. The players' associations have had a nightmare trying to arbitrate for setting these really clear, definitive rules. And what happens in business, and especially in sports, is they are always adding new revenue sources and then trying to not have them be part of the revenue sharing. Like it's happening all of the time. And the NFL is always having problems with that, constantly, because those guys are constantly trying to weasel in new ways to make money off the players and not pay them. It's like, and the cap system as it is set up makes that easier for them. So let me be very clear about that. Also, the revenue sharing model where they get 50% of the revenues. Again, revenue can be manipulated in some crazy ways. For example, naming rights on a stadium in the NFL can be amortized over 15 years, which then drops that salary cap number down, because they do their salary cap based on projection of the future profit or revenue for the league. So they project it. And then there's like some loose language around that's not super strict and hard to determine how that thing adjusts if they make more money than they project. And then they withhold certain, so they'll be like, oh, we're naming the stadium, but instead of it being like, even if it's named for 10 years, they can say, well, we're paying it for 15 years to make that number less. And then that factors in the projection, which lowers the salary cap, because the teams want the lowest salary cap possible, because you can project how much money you have to spend that year and make your franchise value go to the moon. Let me just put it very clearly for you guys. Profit and revenue is not attached to a success in the NFL at all. They're completely divorced. That is perfectly encapsulated by the Dallas Cowboys and the fact that their team is worth $9 billion, and Jerry Jones is the owner and has been the GM for 28 years. And in those 28 years, he is 2 games over 500. They are a 500 team since he's been the GM for 3 decades. Last year, it is projected, because this isn't public, they made $1.2 billion and paid $210 million in salary. That is not 50%. That is 1/6. But it's 50% around the league, not per team. So other teams have to pick up that bill for the Cowboys, which is crazy. And then on top of all that, Dak Prescott is making 1/4 of his team's entire salary. So like, that is not a system working well, guys. That is not clear. That is not a way to build a team. So Dak has to take less money so more other guys can be on his team. That's crazy. Like, that makes it very hard. And it's the employee's job to make it so their team can be good. That's crazy if you think about it. So basically, Major League Baseball saw that and said, we don't want that. That complicates things so much that we're not gonna play this game. And also, you can't definitively outspend competition in baseball effectively. You can do it, but you have to spend an astronomical amount of money, and it still might not work out. And it's much more guaranteed, say, if you are the Heat and you get Chris Bosh and LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, right? If there were no cap, think about what would happen in the NBA. The 5 best players be on a team, and one guy can take over a game. So, like, that team would be the best team. And there's no question about that. It's inevitable. And that doesn't translate the same way in baseball. So that what I'm trying to say is the salary cap doesn't feel as necessary. It's more of a predictive mechanism for the owners, which we'll speak about in just a second. There's more questions in here that expand on this, which I think is really interesting. Okay. So next up we go, can you break down how revenue sharing works in MLB and how the Pirates can claim poverty while receiving $100 million annually in shared revenue? Yes, I can. Thank you for asking this. Let me explain how revenue, at least the buckets of revenue, exist in baseball and why it's a problem. We have national revenue. That is Sunday Night Baseball, or whatever it is now on ESPN. That is the Apple games. That is that's the playoffs with Fox, and that is like CBS, like all of these deals signed for the special events. WBC stuff, I believe, is in this. All of the baseball teams, all 30 of them, split that 30 different ways directly because nobody is in control of that, right? The reason they don't do a national deal like, say, the NFL is because NFL they play games on 3 different days, and 2 of the days have 1 game. So like Sunday is just a huge day where everyone is watching not only their team, but the other teams. The national audience for the teams that aren't, it's not as regional of a sport, and it only happens once or twice a week. People are just sitting and watching once or twice a week. It's an event. There's less games to shop, so they can all be national games. If you're only shopping 16, 17, 18 days a year, like that aggregates a lot of viewership. In baseball, it's every goddamn day. So like there's oversaturation of baseball games. You can get baseball too easily, so it's not as enticing for national providers to spend tons of money. So there's not a huge amount there. So that's why that doesn't happen. That makes sense. That's logical. That, like, of course, like that's actually right. I don't know how you can pull that off. So there's that national money. Then there's local revenue. That is naming rights to the stadium, ticket sales, local advertising, the regional TV networks. That goes into local revenue. 48% of every team goes into a bucket, and then that bucket is spread 1/30. So when the Pirates go and they put their 48% in, and the Dodgers go and they put their 48% in, which is way more, what happens is they go look at the what that pool is, what everyone's going to get, and they see how much everyone would put in or take out. And some teams receive more money because of that system, the Pirates, and some teams lose money, the Dodgers. Kind of like how the United States of America works with states, right? Aggregate the money, they spread it out, so they're like it's not like the big places only get the federal money. It's the same way. It's the same thing for programs. They do that the same way. So if you think about it, The Pirates, who are never on a Sunday night baseball game, ever, they never participate in the national games, so they don't have anything to do with it, and they still get 1/30th of that. Then they put in less money and then receive more back. If you're getting an extra $100 million a year for nothing, why would you try? Why would you try? Why? If you kept all of your local revenue, you'd make $70 million. But if you give half of it away and then receive something back and get the national revenue, now you're making $120 million. What's the point of winning? It's not going to change either way. We're not going to make significantly more local revenue if we win. It's not worth it to win. That is probably the problem. That's how it works. 48% of local revenue. Now, if we lowered that to 25% and it was up to you to drive the revenue of your local revenue to make more of your money and you couldn't rely so much on that pool, then suddenly I think we'd see people investing in their business. But they don't have to. It's just, they're just getting dividend checks. Some of these guys are just getting dividends checks. And then the A's will do things like go get Luis Severino or sign Trevor May for 1 year to get so it doesn't look quite as bad, but still rake in a bunch of money. And then you don't really have to do anything. You just have to be there. That might be the issue. That could be it. I don't know. It's almost as if it doesn't matter if we win because we're going to make the same amount of money either way. But it's just, that's kind of how it works. Now, that needs to exist at a level, but that is why the lower level teams aren't spending. And then the higher tier teams are spending because they're just saying, screw this. I'm going to spend it either way. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to spend it because it's better. It's just, I want to, and I want to win. I'm Steve Cohen, right? And then there's the luxury tax. So you go above the luxury tax, that money, you get a penalty on the money. So you got to pay a portion of that money into a pool that then gets what? Given to all the low market teams again. It's spread among the teams again. So there's even more because of the luxury tax. So they're just oh, I want that, I want that, I want that. Okay. We don't have the money to pay. I'm sorry, guys. And they spend 30% of their total money and they take 70 of it and put it in their pockets. And it's built that way. It's built so they can do that. So the ownership chose that. So do with that information what you will.
10 years from today, Lisa Schneider will trade in her office job to become the leader of a pack of dogs. As the owner of her own dog rescue, that is. A second act made possible by the reskilling courses Lisa's taking now with AARP to help make sure her income lives as long as she does. And she can finally run with the big dogs. And the small dogs, who just think they're big dogs. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP. Learn more at aarp.org/skills.
FT fam, if you want more information about Superpower, I have real-life customer Eric Kratz with us right now to explain how you're basically getting the pro experience available for everyone.
$199 is the price, and that's a discount from Superpower. That's a discount from everywhere. You get so much information from your lab test results. Christmas is coming up here soon. You can give this gift to somebody else. Health is the gift that keeps on giving.
Your blueprint activated with Superpower. Not only did Superpower reduce that price to what Kratz is talking about, just $199, but for a limited time, FT fam gets an additional $20 off with code TAKE20. Head to superpower.com and use code TAKE20 at checkout for $20 off your membership. After you sign up, they're going to ask you how you heard about them, and make sure you mention FT to support the show. Stop only reacting to health problems and start proactively improving your health based on real personalized data with Superpower.
That's when we say they're crying poor and they're not poor. They're not, okay? All right, continuing on. There's a few more here, and I'm going to try to rapid fire them a little bit more. This might be a double video. And then we're going to talk about the World Series. So let's get excited. So I just talked about this. What role did regional TV deals play in revenue inequality? And could the national TV contract save it? So we know why we can't do a national TV contract, right? Why it doesn't work very well, and why the people who would do it aren't keen to do it, namely the big networks. And we know that regional TV plays into the local revenue, but there is one thing that is worth talking about, and Jeff Passan actually talked about this recently, and this tells a little bit more of the story of why owners are going in this direction. So there's been a lot of question marks around regional TV, right? I get it. TV is dying in general. Broadcast packages are dying in general, and there is an oversaturation of baseball on TV. There's just so many games. You can watch a bunch of games. Blackouts are their way of making it feel a little bit more exclusive, which and it also drives up the value a little bit of those things. And I get that as well. I understand it from a business standpoint, but like, there's just so many games that national doesn't work. So like, they need broadcast television now doesn't want to do it because there's still too many games. It's not now locally they're starting to have the same problem locally as they did nationally. That's what I'm trying to say. So with that uncertainty comes added uncertainty for an owner when they are projecting their revenue for the next year. Now, this is the big difference between Major League Baseball and the other sports. Football and basketball can very accurately predict how much money they're going to need to spend the next year because of the cap system. What that allows them to do is go to financial institutions and other billionaires and banks and say, this is how much money this business is making. Give me a nice franchise valuation. That valuation keeps going up. They can then borrow money on that valuation, this like magical thing that this is how much this thing's worth. They borrow money and then they put it in their other projects and make more money. Jerry Jones, Jerry Jones, Jerry Jones, Jerry Jones. Okay? Major League Baseball looks at that and says, I want that. I want to be able to leverage my baseball team franchise value, but because they can't predict now their revenue from regional TV because it's uncertain and player salaries, how much they're going to have to spend. Now they can't predict revenues or expenses when before they can only not predict expenses. So this whole thing is going to be a move to make it easier for them to raise their franchise values. That is actually what they want long term. That is what they want because that is how business is run now. It is based on sentiment and what people think things are valued, not actually the what's happening inside of the business as much. It's based on the fundamentals, it is, but like, I don't know if you noticed, look around, there's a lot of things that are determined this way now, and they see opportunity to make more money. If you notice, players haven't said, oh, this is bad and we need to change this, whatever. We're like, if we just kind of made some small adjustments, we'd be good. But the owners are pushing this, not the players. And they want to increase their franchise values. So I just want people to have an understanding of that is their motivation. That is what they want. And they're going to frame it to like, fans, look, we can't be competitive because there's no cap on spending. But the cap on spending creates that certainty. It doesn't actually make the teams more competitive. Or it may be a little bit, but not enough to, that trade-off is not worth it. And that's it. That's where that's come from. So that's why regional TV deals are a big deal, because they're uncertain. And I get it. That's scary. But you guys are the geniuses. You're the ones with billions of dollars. You're the businessmen. And the world is changing. So I would challenge you to prove that you're the genius that you all think you are and make some savvy business moves and fix the problem and figure out a way to do it. It is not your employee's job to fix that problem for you as much as you think it is. And that's the crux of the matter at this point, in my opinion. In my opinion. All right. Talked about reducing team control years, but it's fair compensation for teams that invest 7+ years in millions in minor league development if a player can leave right after they become good. So this is saying it's not fair for teams to invest into a player when they're going to leave right away. You get their labor for the time you had them. That's it. So this is silly because the team is receiving, even if they spent millions of dollars in development, they're still receiving more value for that player on the back end if they're a big leaguer and if they're productive. If they get to free agency, they provided more value for their team, most likely, than they were paid in compensation. And that's how it's set up. The reason control is this way is so they can underpay you, and then you go and recoup that value later, probably from another team. That's silly, but that's what so basically the team receives all of the value up front, is what I'm saying. That's why that's fair compensation. The fair compensation is their labor for the 8 years that you have them, and for the presumably 4 to 5 to 6 years they were on your Major League Baseball team, because you probably paid them minimum wage for 3 years, which is way less than comparable players are probably worth somewhere in free agency. And then arbitration, maybe it goes up. Maybe you do get to that number eventually. But for all those years, you did not pay them the amount of money they would have been worth on the free market. And that is the point. You're supposed to get more value than you get from the player, and he's supposed to go get that later. So that's how that works. That's why this is the way it is. We're almost there.
10 years from today, Lisa Schneider will trade in her office job to become the leader of a pack of dogs. As the owner of her own dog rescue, that is. A second act made possible by the reskilling courses Lisa's taking now with AARP to help make sure her income lives as long as she does. And she can finally run with the big dogs. And the small dogs, who just think they're big dogs. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP. Learn more at aarp.org/skills.
How much does state tax and cost of living actually factor into free agency decisions? Does California high tax rate actually hurt the Dodgers, or is it negligible? I assume you get taxed hard for the amount you make. Yes, this is one interesting thing, and disclaimer, really quickly, disclaimer. I am not complaining about the amount of money Major League Baseball players are making. It is awesome. And the reason that the union is the way it is because they were allowed to, they're here to help us get the piece of the pie that is adequate for the amount of the pie that there is. So this is not a complaint about taxes. I, in my opinion, think that taxes are important as long as they're going where they need to go. That is another conversation for somewhere else. But this is how it works. You are a W-2, W-4, W-2, whichever one it is, salaried employee. So you're hit with federal income taxes and state income taxes before you see your money. What that means is, if you play in California, 52% of your money is gone before you see it. They withhold it. So if you're making $30 million, that's $14 million. Just there's no capital gains here. There's no loopholes for tax. You're not like the other millionaires where you can just say, yeah, but I put that money into 58 rental properties, and so now you can't tax it. Baseball players can't do that. They just take it right away. So, Juan Soto's 765 is actually worth whatever that is, half of that is, 380 something, 383, 382 in real money. And that's if it was all now. And then over time, it's going to lose value for inflation. And if you defer it, it loses even more value. So I'm not saying feel bad. It's just something to realize that the half of it's gone. Okay, so yes, that does factor in. That's where signing bonuses come in. Blake Snell signed a $56 million signing bonus because he lives in Seattle. There's no income tax. So he gets 13% more money when he's paid that $56 million. So he's saving $6 million, which is a lot. More than $6.5 million. But they did that because he's I'm going to lose $6 million more in value on top of taxes, within taxes, if I take all that money in New York City. So deferment's the same thing. Whenever you're deferred, wherever you are is what you're paid. And that's why that's beneficial. The problem is deferment's the amount of money you lose inflation and how money changes, especially now, because the dollar's going to be worth nothing here in about a year. Shohei's making way less than $700 million. But that's a trade-off he chose to do. Now, deferments are a whole thing. We need to talk about deferments. Deferments are the thing that probably are the big adjustment here that needs to be made. Without deferments, the Dodgers would not be able to have the payroll they have. We all know that. So one way to do that is through signing bonuses. But in New York City, it's 11%. In New York State, it's 11%. In California, it's 13%. In California, or in Canada, there's the exchange rate. There's where you are when you're paid, whether or not you're paid in Canadian dollars or American. There's a lot going on there too. It's very complicated. And that factors in a whole bunch as well. And Vlad took his deal because he's already there, right? But free agency, it's hard to get guys to go there free agency because of that. That makes sense, especially when you're all kind of aiming for one free agency. So yes, taxes hammer you, and it does play into it because, again, if you're trying to maximize your value, why would you take 16, 17, or why would you take 11, 12, 13% less money to go somewhere than other if the money's all the same? So that's why those teams in those places have to drive those numbers up because of the tax burden. So yes, that plays in a lot. My last year, I was losing 52% of my money right away, but I got 1/7 of my last salary paid in a signing bonus to shelter it from at least the 13%. That's all you can really do. Signing bonus is the only way to do that. So there's no loopholes. There's no, there's also kind of nothing you can really do. They can't give you property or anything. They could, it's super, super sketchy, and you still have to pay tax on it. So you're a salary employee at the end of the day. It works the same as any other salary employee. They withhold your taxes. Yeah, and you get hammered by it. Sucks. It sucks, but it's also just kind of the way it goes, right? Like, so it sucks in the same way as a lot of people experience. I think a lot of people can identify with losing 35% of your money right away, just seeing it gone. Sucks, no matter what that number is. It sucks forever. If it was $1 billion and it went to 500 million, you'd be like, that sucks. That sucks. Knowing what the potential is and knowing what you're getting, it just stinks no matter what. All right. Okay. I like this. What's your realistic prediction for the 2027 CBA negotiations? What would the players demand? What would the owners demand? How long will we lose baseball? I don't know. It's going to be very interesting because, like I said, the owners are engaging this. They're being proactive. They have something they want. And because of that, they are going to be the one that makes the first proposal, and we're not going to know how this is going to go until we see what that is. Like, how aggressive are they going to be about it? How, what's it going to be like? I don't know, but it would not surprise me. Let's just put it this way. The only way games are probably, because the lockout, I'm very certain the lockout will be implemented. And the only way that games will be missed is if the players don't give in before then. Because the teams will not break it. They will miss games if the players stay steady and try to defend. The ownership will outlast them because they're waiting till the season ends to do it. Because the players' biggest leverage is the striking for like the World Series where they make tons of money, which is why it worked in 1994. And they're waiting till that's over to then lock you out. So like next year, if they thought a lockout was coming, the players would have to strike right before the World Series. And no one wants to do that, especially if they made it, right? So like that's the interesting thing. So they're going to propose a salary cap. And it's going to be interesting to see how the players respond to that, because we can all agree that there are income inequalities amongst players that make team assembly harder in free agency. And I think everyone would be in a better position if that were easier. But do you know what that doesn't do? That doesn't raise franchise values. So who knows? Who knows if they'll even care about that? It's hard to tell. I'm interested to see in how easily everyone can agree on what the problems that need to be solved are, because there are economic problems, like I mentioned about the regional networks. But some of these things they made that way on purpose, right? So they voted for them. They wanted them. They want the luxury tax. And then they use it as a thing to complain about. They created the revenue sharing where you don't have to win. But then they want to say things like, but competitive balance isn't great. Like, you're bad. Now you're laying in it. I don't know what to tell you. So we'll see what happens. But I think at the end of the day, all of us, we just want baseball. We just want baseball. But I'm going to be right here anyway covering it. And I'm going to try to be as objective as humanly possible. I know I am biased by nature. I know that. I have this aversion. Like Rob has just done things and operated in ways that just are not very respectful for me, and therefore I'm not willing to give respect for them in return. Okay? That, like, the way things have been done can be done in a more good faith and productive way, and it's being consciously not doing that way because it's about power dynamics, and I just don't have time to tippy-toe around how that's just unnecessary and silly and immature. It's just an immature thing. I don't care if it's normal. It's stupid. And this could be solved if people wanted to solve it, but we have to listen to one side say they want to solve it when they don't. And that's the part I always have an issue with, and it's really hard for me to give too much credit for the person that does that. But I will say the pitch clock has worked out and I was wrong. So I'll give you that one. How about you can have that one? All right, last little thing. What about the system to international soccer where there's no cap, no draft, but also promotion regulation? Could you model parts to work for baseball, punish chief owners? That would be interesting. Relegation's interesting. Big part about relegation, though, baseball is like a facilities issue. Like even AAA teams, they just don't have the facilities to make it consistent across baseball teams. There's also an antitrust. As far as I know, and at least in Britain for the Premier League, they don't have antitrust. So like, there's a lot of just football leagues around, and the best way they sought to do it is have this regulation system where they let people from other leagues come in and come out, so they could capture that value without having to like ban them. That makes so. As far as I could find, it's kind of murky to kind of figure that out, and I don't know a lot about it, so this needs more research. But it is just a different structure. It would be cool. But I will say, in terms of European soccer, there's so much corruption. Like, just ask diehard football fans over there if teams are just buying stuff and just like, and how just disgusting it is all of the time. They're having an issue. They're like, yeah, I don't know about that. Like, corruption, or just like, you can call it corruption, or just like having an uncapped system makes it there's wild inequality all over the place. So it's not like that's perfect either, but there are some things that could go, and that would be interesting. But I think the biggest one is facilities, and travel's farther here also. There's like it's resources and stuff. Britain, you can drive the whole thing. You can just hop on a bus and go, right? In here, like, I know it's far to go all the way north and all the way south. It's not necessarily close, but in the United States, you can't just drive from New York City to San Diego. So there's all that stuff too. So it's interesting. It's interesting to say the least. All right. Thank you guys for your questions. Obviously, let me know on the video if you see this again. Subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. This was a lot of fun to do. I have so much good stuff to talk about, and this will be ongoing. I'm dumping it here at the beginning because it's a hot button issue, especially with the Dodgers win the World Series again. So I'm going to try not to dump this on you constantly, but it is what it is.
10 years from today, Lisa Schneider will trade in her office job to become the leader of a pack of dogs. As the owner of her own dog rescue, that is. A second act made possible by the reskilling courses Lisa's taking now with AARP to help make sure her income lives as long as she does. And she can finally run with the big dogs. And the small dogs, who just think they're big dogs. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP. Learn more at aarp.org/skills.
This ad is only 15 seconds. In that amount of time, there are likely to be an average of over 15,000 cyber threats to all businesses. So there's no time to wait. Get threat ready with Comcast Business at comcastbusiness.com/cybersecurity.